And to provide more analysis, joining us from Paris is Dr. Majid Bouden, international law professor. Welcome to Qnews. And now, Dr. Bouden, if we start by Macron's push for security guarantees, is it real shield for Ukraine or just diplomatic theater ahead of Witkoff's Moscow visit?
Well, this depends on what other concessions Kiev will be obliged to give. Because if you take only one item, we will not be able to understand the whole arrangement, how it is. In a deal, in an agreement, we have to have two things present. First of all, we have to have on which base, on which legal base this deal is to be made and is made, on what is the applicable law, if any. Is it made by taking into account what is the balance of power in that situation? If these discussions are made at arm's length, means parties are free to decide. Then we go into the matter of the deal itself, and then we have to see all the articles of the arrangement, all the points of the deal together. When you see them linked together, then you see the scope of the arrangement, whether there is giving privileges to one side in favor of one side and against another side, or it's balanced. Yes, please.
Yes, let's discuss the role of Europe. Can Europe reclaim a seat at the peace table after being sidelined in the US-crafted deal that demands Ukrainian territorial concessions?
Of course. I mean, this is necessary because Ukraine is in Europe. Even if it's not in the EU, it is in Europe, in the continent of Europe, and this the invasion of the Ukrainian territory is part of the invasion of the European territories, and therefore we cannot look at the point as only an Ukrainian matter, but also as an aggression against the whole Europe. And this is how the Europeans are looking at this matter now. When you see, for instance, Kaja Kallas, the Foreign Affairs and Security
Commissioner,
she is claiming that an aggression against Ukraine can pave the way to another aggression against Poland or aggression the Baltic countries. And it could be also an aggression against Romania, against Moldavia, and then it can go further. So the problem is how Vladimir Putin is putting the matter today. He is thinking that the roots of the dispute is a historical root. It means that he wanted to come back to the Russian Empire or to the Soviet Empire.
Yes, the Soviet era.
Yeah. So when you see this, you cannot have guarantees on this point. How can you have guarantees? Because we have to recall that Ukraine had guarantees to dismantle its nuclear weapons. We can remember in the 1990s, Ukraine has a huge amount of, substantial amount of nuclear weapons on its territory, under its commandment, it's under its fabrication, and they have the technology to do that. And then when they had these peace talks after the dismantling of the Soviet Union, and the Ukrainian has voted for their independence, like other countries, at that time, the Europeans and the Americans have discussed with the new Russian state by saying, now we have to obtain from all these countries like Kazakhstan and Ukraine, etc., to move their weapons to Russia, to give them to Russia, to abandon them to Russia against the guarantees. Okay, so now they had the guarantees at the time, And then these guarantees were not able to stop this invasion. So we have to be careful about the guarantees if we take them as a separate element, but to put them together with all the other elements on the table. Are they going to oblige Kiev to abandon territories? And then we have the question of this applicable law. It does mean that when a state has the force, that can use the force to obtain and to put its hands on a territory of the other country, it means that these territories will become belonging to them. That the use of force is useful to obtain territories. It means that the international law is
vulnerable in this case. It would be vulnerable. Yes.
But also it's taken out. So we are not talking about a deal made under international law, because if we make a deal under international law, this will be the major points.
Yes.
State and no takeover of territories by force, and the matter and reparation of the hostilities and correction and reparation. This is international law. It's very, very clear, very simple.
So does the Rafale jet, sir, the Rafale jet deal signal France's long-term military commitment, or is it a symbolic gesture masking limited strategic influence?
Well, Europe is in a situation where it should affirm, first of all, that it must take place around the table of the peace talks. Second, they have proved that when after the Anchorage meeting, where Vladimir Putin obtained everything from Donald Trump, they went back to Donald Trump and they have convinced him to change his proposal, and they obtained substantial changes. But now I've discovered that Donald Trump has also made promises to Vladimir Putin, and how now it will end. Now discussions are going on major things. First of all, to abandon territories. Will Kiev accept that? Will Europe accept that? It means that the international law there is not observed, and it will be an encouragement to any other country to use force to obtain other territories. Second, the guarantees, and now we have seen the precedent of the guarantees of the 1990s, and then what will be the guarantees and who will be the guarantor of the guarantees. You see, and so this is, and what is the independent body who can
overlook or oversee the situation
and sanction if the guarantee it's not observed? And then what about the compensation? What about the reparations? And regarding the reparations, the EU has thought about using the 190 billion euros or dollars in the European system, which is belonging to Russia, but to use them as a guarantee here, a financial guarantee to give loans to Kiev to buy weapons. And this is now, Belgium is not favorable because this money is held in Belgium, and then the bank system of Belgium, and a special arrangement for the EU, which is located in Belgium. But the Europeans now are trying to have a solution about that, how they can use it without breaching international law. Because money is belonging to Russia, and they cannot take sanctions on these monies, because these monies are under the custody of the Europeans, and this regime of custody, the legal regime, is different from the regime of sanctions. So they operate like that. So you have a lot of issues. We have to put them all together to see how these negotiations will continue, on which basis, and what is after this, what are the interests of each party. Either the US, for instance, what they want, they have made a deal with Ukraine they have three deals. The first deal is to sell them weapons, and they are still selling them weapons, but the weapons are financed by whom? By the EU, not anymore. So the US, the
It's
EU.
quite complex, Dr.
Yeah,
Bouden. It's quite complex, and with the earth minerals involved, with so many factors involved.
yeah.
But let's take it step by step. With Zelensky weakened by scandal and battlefield losses, can Paris truly bolster Kiev's leverage against both Moscow and Washington?
Yes, you see, this matter of corruption is a very important issue, and it's a killer point. Because we know that in Russia, in Ukraine, corruption is something is an ongoing problem, and it's true that in Kiev has taken measures because they have established an independent body to fight against corruption, and but Russia did not have this system. So if there is corruption discovered in Ukraine, we cannot say that in Russia there is no corruption because there is no system to investigate in that.
Yes.
And point that in Ukraine, when they have discovered this corruption, it is the administration of Zelensky who has provided the tools to discover this corruption within this administration of.
Well, that was Dr. Majid Bouden, international law professor. Thank you so much, Professor, for your special insights.